As men grow older, something peculiar often begins to stir beneath the surface. It's not just about wrinkles or grey hair or the aching knees that now greet them every morning. It's something deeper, a quiet hunger that creeps in when the noise of life starts to fade. And often that hunger pulls them towards something that seems entirely opposite to the place they're in. Youth, specifically the youth of a woman. You've probably seen it, an older man, weathered with age and experience, in the company of a younger woman, radiant and full of energy. And society raises its eyebrows. Assumptions fly. He's just after her body, or she's just after his wallet. But beneath the surface, something more complicated, more human, is unfolding. This video is not about judgment, it's about understanding, because the reasons why older men are drawn to younger women are often far more emotional and existential than people realize. It starts often with time. Time does something to a man, it makes him look backward. When a man reaches his 50s, 60s, or even 70s, he begins to assess. Not just his career or accomplishments, but his very identity. Who did he become? Who did he fail to become? Many older men begin to feel like life passed by quicker than they expected. Regret, nostalgia, and reflection mix into a quiet storm, and in the presence of a younger woman, her energy, her laughter, the way she lights up when talking about the future, he doesn't just see her. He sees himself again, or at least the man he once was. For a fleeting moment she becomes a mirror, not of who he is now, but who he once felt like. Or worse, who he never got to be. And that feeling is intoxicating. But this isn't just about reliving youth. It's about aliveness. Older men, especially those who have faced divorce, loss, or emotional neglect, often feel invisible. The world no longer sees them as exciting or full of potential. The spotlight has shifted to the next generation. Yet, when a younger woman laughs at his jokes, listens to his stories, or looks at him with fascination, it awakens a dormant part of him. It makes him feel visible again, not because he's clinging to the past, but because he's desperate to feel something in the present. The company of a younger woman, for some, is not about dominance or power. It's about connection, warmth, and feeling wanted in a world that has grown cold. Of course, there are some who pursue youth for shallow reasons, status, vanity, sexual thrill, but they usually burn out quickly. The deeper reason, the one that lingers long after the physical attraction fades, is emotional renewal. Many older men don't just want a younger woman because she's physically beautiful. They're drawn to the emotional climate she brings, her spontaneity, her curiosity, her dreams not yet weighed down by the disappointments of life. She reminds him that life can still surprise you, that not everything is set in stone. And in her presence he gets to rewrite the tired story he's been telling himself for years. But here's the truth most don't talk about. What these men are often really looking for isn't her age, it's her spirit. And that's where the misunderstanding begins, because youth and spirit are not the same thing. A woman in her 30s, 40s, or even 50s can possess the same radiant vitality that draws men in. But society has conditioned men to associate that vitality strictly with physical youth. And so, many men search in the wrong place, assuming that what they crave lives in smooth skin and wide eyes. But what they really crave is something much more sacred, a woman who still believes in life, a woman who hasn't given up on passion, laughter, intimacy, or dreams. And yes, younger women often embody that, but they are not the only ones. What's even more fascinating is that these older men often aren't trying to start over. They're trying to feel again. Many of them have spent decades in emotionally dry relationships. They've learned to become providers, protectors, stoics. But not lovers, not poets, not romantic adventurers. And when a younger woman enters their life, with her wild heart and unfiltered emotions, she cracks something open in them. She gives them permission to feel again, to love messily, to hope again. For many men, this is less about the woman in front of them, and more about the emotional self they lost touch with. She becomes a bridge back to feeling. But there's a cost. When the connection is purely physical or superficial, it rarely lasts. The age difference becomes a gap too wide to cross. Life stages clash. He talks about legacy. She talks about dreams. He wants rest. She wants the world. That's when disillusionment creeps in. The relationship can start to feel like a performance. He tries to be young again. She tries to be more mature than she is, and eventually both get tired. Because age gap relationships are not sustained by fantasy. They're sustained by deep emotional compatibility, when the values align, when the silence is just as comfortable as the laughter, when both people see each other not as symbols but as humans. So, what are older men really looking for in younger women? It's not about sex, not at its core. It's not about beauty, not the shallow kind. It's about an invitation to feel alive again, to be seen, to be emotionally reborn. And just sometimes a younger woman brings that gift without even knowing it. But here's the twist. Many older men don't actually need a younger woman to experience that. What they really need is to reconnect with the parts of themselves they buried. The playful part, the curious part, the hopeful part, the sensual part. They chase youth in others when what they're really craving is youth within. This is why true wisdom in age gap relationships comes from self-awareness. If an older man pursues a younger woman out of emptiness, insecurity or fear of aging, he'll only find momentary relief. But if he engages that relationship from a place of depth, emotional maturity and authenticity, knowing what he's bringing and what he's seeking, then the connection can be real. It may not always last, but it can still be meaningful, and sometimes it awakens not just him, but her too, because younger women too often carry their own wounds of neglect, chaos or disconnection, and the right older man, calm and anchored, can offer a kind of emotional safety they've never known. But let's go even deeper. Many older men carry emotional wounds they've never spoken of, decades of suppressing vulnerability, being told that real men don't cry. Many have endured emotional neglect, toxic marriages, or years of being providers without ever being emotionally nourished in return. They were loved for their roles, father, husband, breadwinner, but not for their essence. When a younger woman looks at him and loves him for who he is now, not for what he can give, not for what he was 20 years ago, it touches a part of him that he didn't even know was still alive. That emotional validation is rare, especially for older men. And when it comes, it doesn't just feel good, it feels sacred, it feels healing. But this dynamic also reveals something crucial about how society treats aging men. We don't talk enough about the emotional isolation that comes with growing older as a man. The world stops asking about your dreams. People assume you've already done what you were going to do. They stop expecting magic from you. The only narrative left is survival. But when a younger woman enters his life and asks him questions that no one's asked in years, what makes you happy? Or do you still believe in love? It stirs the soul. Because maybe he forgot that those questions still mattered. Maybe he forgot he was allowed to matter in that way. Now, here's something few are willing to admit. Younger women are not always naive in these dynamics. Many of them are emotionally intelligent, intuitive, and far more aware than people give them credit for. Some are not just attracted to the man's stability or life experience, but to his presence, his calmness, his ability to sit in silence without needing to fill it. In a world where everyone is rushing, posting, proving and chasing, older men often bring a slower, deeper rhythm. And for a woman who's grown tired of emotionally immature men her own age, that difference can be incredibly appealing. She doesn't want someone to play games. She wants someone who knows what he wants, and often an older man does. But here's where it gets complex. That emotional attraction can turn into emotional dependency on both sides. The older man may begin to rely on her youth to feel alive, while she may lean on his maturity to feel grounded. And if neither person is self-aware, the relationship can tip into imbalance. He starts performing youth to keep her interested, changing how he dresses, pretending to enjoy things he's outgrown. She, in turn, may suppress her own chaos, dreams, or spontaneity to seem more stable, more worthy of his admiration. But the moment people start shrinking themselves to fit a relationship, the authenticity dies. And without authenticity, what once felt magical starts to feel like a performance. Another overlooked aspect is legacy. For many older men, especially those past middle age, the question of legacy becomes urgent. What do I leave behind? Who remembers me? Who will carry my stories, my essence, my lessons? Sometimes younger women represent more than companionship. They represent a chance to be remembered, a chance to pass something on. And it's not always about children or inheritance. Sometimes it's emotional legacy. He teaches her what took him decades to learn, not as a mentor, but as a man who's finally speaking truths he never had the courage to share. And she listens, not with politeness, but with hunger. Because while she may be young, she too is searching for meaning, for guidance, for depth, and in that moment both are transformed. But this connection requires caution. Not all older men are emotionally ready for the vulnerability a younger woman invites. Some want the image, the attention, the envy, the idea that they've still got it. But the younger woman sees through it. She notices when confidence is real and when it's just bravado. If he hasn't done the emotional work, if he's still carrying unresolved bitterness, insecurity or resentment, she may feel it and leave. Because while age can bring wisdom, it doesn't guarantee emotional maturity. That only comes from inner work, from reflection, from confronting one's past and asking, have I grown or just aged? And on her side there's often a yearning too, one not often discussed. Some younger women are tired of modern relationships that feel hollow. The endless texting, the hookup culture, the emotional games. An older man, if he's evolved emotionally, offers something rare, clarity. He knows how to communicate. He's not afraid of depth. He doesn't vanish when things get intense. He knows how to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. That groundedness becomes a lighthouse. She doesn't want a father figure, but she does want someone who has weathered storms and still believes in love. That's not weakness on her part, it's wisdom. And yet there is another danger, when admiration turns into idealization. A younger woman may see the older man as someone who has it all figured out. She may elevate him to a pedestal, and he, in return, might feel pressure to maintain that illusion. But real love does not come from pedestals. It comes from honesty, from seeing each other's flaws and staying anyway. And this is where many age-gap relationships are tested. Can he be vulnerable about his fears of aging, of loss, of death? Can she be honest about her uncertainty, her impatience, her hunger for the future? The relationships that last are not the ones where both people play roles, but where both people remove the masks. Another important point, many older men drawn to younger women aren't running from something shallow. They're running from emotional starvation, years of being in relationships where their inner life didn't matter, where their emotional world was dismissed or ignored. So when a younger woman offers emotional intimacy, it feels revolutionary. But the risk here is dependency. She can become the sole source of joy, of validation, of meaning. And that's too much weight for any person to carry. That's why it's critical for older men to rediscover joy within themselves, to cultivate purpose that stands alone, regardless of who walks into their life. Some may say he just wants to feel young again, but maybe it's more accurate to say he wants to feel alive again. There's a difference. Youth is a phase, aliveness is a state of being. And aliveness doesn't come from age, it comes from emotional openness, from creative expression, from vulnerability, from being witnessed not for what you used to be, but for who you are now. And the presence of a younger woman for some men cracks open that forgotten door. But again, the real task is not to chase her light, but to remember his own. And perhaps one of the most powerful realizations an older man can have is this: what you're looking for in her, you must first awaken in yourself. The joy, the curiosity, the passion, the laughter, it lives inside you still. It's not dead, it's dormant. You don't need her age to give you permission to feel. You can choose that feeling now, and when you do, something beautiful happens. You stop chasing youth and start attracting connection, real connection, the kind that transcends age. In the end, the attraction between older men and younger women is not just about age, it's about energy. It's about emotional exchange. It's about what each person awakens in the other. And while society may reduce it to cliches and cynicism, the truth is more poetic than most realize. At our core, we're all searching to feel alive, to be seen, to be held, not just in someone's arms, but in their eyes, in their presence. And whether that comes from someone older or younger, it's that feeling that every human deep down longs for. So if you're an older man who finds yourself drawn to a younger woman, ask yourself, what am I really seeking? Is it her age? Or is it something age only reminds me of? The answer to that question might just lead you to something far more lasting than lust, something wiser, deeper, and maybe even love.